we had the budget.
Swing and a drive, right field and deep. Back goes Aquino. It's got a chance. Gone. Get out the tape measure. Long gone.
Fly the W!
Cubs fans, it's time to fly the W with Dustin Rhodes and Paul Crawley-Jean.
You are watching a special live edition of the Fly the W podcast. You can follow me here at Crawley's Cubs, and if you can subscribe to the YouTube channel and put on those notifications, Crawley's Clubhouse, we'd love to have you joining us all this time. Joining me now on the podcast, Josh Frydman from WGN Sports. How you doing, Josh?
Crawley, what's up, man? Great to do this live as well. And from the casa that we rent out for 10 days in Arizona. Unfortunately, our time's coming to an end in AZ in a couple of days, but it's been a fun first week of camp for sure.
I gotta tell you, you don't want to come home. It's going to look like a mess when you get there. It's going to be sub-zero temperatures this week, so try to see if you can extend it.
I've heard you guys have gotten a little snow when we've been gone. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to miss the sunshine in the 70s.
Well, here's the thing, Josh. Not only are you covering Cubs camp, you're covering White Sox. And for people that aren't aware, the Cubs are unique in the fact that they own and control everything in Sloan Park. The White Sox, like most other teams in Arizona, are doubling up. They partner with another team. So the White Sox, the team with the worst record in MLB history, over 120 losses, is sharing a facility with the Dodgers, who are the World Series champions and who look very much like they want to repeat again. What is it like being in Glendale and seeing those two very different franchises sharing the same facilities?
Yeah, it sounds like the start of a corny baseball movie premise, right? Literally the David and Goliath sharing a ballpark facility. I made note of it, honestly, my first report out there on, I think it was Wednesday, when they opened up hitters and catchers, and the juxtaposition, it's so jarring because you have on one side the Dodgers, this behemoth. They're spending $380 million. They got basically every big free agent, it felt like, this offseason. They're coming off a championship, and there's hundreds of media, literally, because so many are from Japan following this team. And then you go to the White Sox, and there's not really a lot of hype at all. The prospects, I guess, is kind of the only thing you really kind of grasp onto. New manager, Will Venable. I sat down with him yesterday. Really nice guy, but the challenge in front of them is not going to be a 1 or 2 year project, Crawley. It's going to be, multiple seasons with Chris Guest, the GM, trying to build up that team. So, right now as a reporter, you're meeting a lot of new faces. They have 70 guys in camp. It's a huge roster. You're trying to find the stories that are there. And there's always, that's always our job. But a striking difference in message and tone and what you experience from just literally one side of the facility to the other with the Cubs, the Dodgers and the White Sox at Camelback Ranch.
Now, when you talk about Jed Hoyer, and you were there when he was talking here, I think I even got, there it is. There's your microphone right there. Yep. But there you are talking to Jed. And obviously, that had to have been, tough for the camp, because there was a little bit of hype surrounding Alex Bregman. But I think the thing that kind of has a lot of people wondering is it seems like a lot of teams are going this deferred money route. And obviously baseball's going to have to do something about it at some point in time. You can't keep doing with it. I mean, what are the Dodgers have more deferred money than some teams have payroll? I mean, it's getting out of control. But while it's still there, why are they so not, wanting to go that route?
Yeah, really all Jed told us was it's a philosophical organizational decision at this point, which to me says the Ricketts family is a little tired of having money on the books still for players that don't suit up for the Cubs. I believe it was Bruce Levine who brought up the fact that John Lester and Jason Hayward are still being paid by the team with deferred money. So, and I completely get that, right? You if you're owning a business and you have an investment and you're saying, all right, we're giving you X amount of money in real life dollars. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to pay you the Bobby Bonilla money 30 years down the line. You're still going to get a check. And that doesn't feel good, right? The Bonilla contract is obviously looked at as one of the, year anniversaries that you kind of joke about, like, oh, another check for Bobby Bonilla. And, it's gotten to be a little bit more extreme now because of the money that the players are making these days, not just $1 million check you're getting in deferrals. But it seems like it's an organizational decision. with the Ricketts. And, we're hearing so much about budget. And as a Cubs fan, you got to be discouraged by the fact that there's a hard cap on this team when you're in a win now season and you see the Dodgers and the Mets and the Phillies and the Braves and the Diamondbacks and the Padres all with bigger budgets than you. And obviously the correlation's not always 1-for-1. Just because you have more money to spend doesn't mean you're going to win. Case in point, the Brewers winning the division last year, and in years past with a small market team, the Rays in the AL East, it doesn't always work that way. But certainly you give yourself a better chance of getting these free agents. And when they kind of came in late in the process of Alex Bregman, it was like, all right, this is going to be a little bit like Cody Bellinger last year. And Jed even brought up that the Ricketts family extended the budget beyond what they had set last year to make room for Cody. And so the fact that it was clearly disappointment in Jed's words, you can see that in his voice and in his body language, that he was disappointed this didn't work out. But when you don't have the best, there it is. I mean, when you don't have the best offer out there, Crawley, and Alex Bregman has his choice of multiple 6-year deals, and then he gets a $40 million plus opt-outs to hit free agency again at age 31, 32 next year. It's hard to blame him to go to Boston, the team that originally drafted him, by the way, out of high school. Then he went to LSU for that connection. That's a team that really loaded up this winter too. So when you compare where the Cubs are at to these other big market teams, certainly it's disappointing for fans.
So it's going to be the Matt Shaw show, and he's a young kid. We don't know what he's going to do. You had a chance to talk to him. Here's some video that you shot from their clubhouse at Sloan, and this is what Matt Shaw had to say about the whole Alex Bregman saga.
It's really exciting. Obviously, the Bregman decision gives us as like a team a little more clarity of moving forward, which I think is nice for everybody. And we're just really excited.
Was this something you were following along with, like the media and fans were, or were you kind of just focusing on what you're doing here and not worried about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Something you definitely follow along with. For me, I've been spending a lot of time working on third base. So that decision impacts a lot where, I might have the opportunity to play in the field. So, just trying to continue to get work in different places, and now obviously going to focus a little bit more on third base.
What does it do for you that the front office, the coaches have said, you're going to get the first crack at this, that they're, confident in you, that they believe you can win this job out of spring?
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. That's all you could ask for. So something I really look forward to. It's going to be a really exciting spring. It should be a lot of fun. And I think it's just a little bit different, having better relationships, feeling a little more comfortable. So I'm definitely excited.
How did you find out Bregman signed with the Red Sox?
I got a text from one of my buddies saying that Bregman's, I grew up in Massachusetts, so I got a lot of Red Sox fans that are friends of mine. So I got a text from one of my friends.
So they were happy both ways. Red Sox fans.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a win-win. Yeah. So
Win-win there. I love it. But the thing I like about him is he was honest. He was like, yeah, I was watching it. Who wouldn't? It's you got some guys that'll be like, oh yeah, I don't pay attention. I just do what I got to do on the. It's like, no, I was watching that because it would have impacted him.
Totally. And, I think the biggest takeaway from talking to Matt Shaw and being around the Cubs and the way they speak about Shaw is he doesn't back down from this. He is not shying away from the fact that he wants to be the third baseman, that he feels like he's ready to contribute right away, that he's come a long way in his defense. The hitting is going to be there. That's the hit tool is really, really good. Talking to another, director of kind of player development with another organization about Shaw recently. And he was like, third base, we'll see if he sticks, but the hit tool is there right away. And they're pretty confident about that. The fact that he was drafted a year and a half ago. I think it's easy to forget, right? 2023 first round pick, really shot through the scene in the minors. So I feel like they feel really good about the bat. And if he can contribute even a little bit in line with the projections, adding to this order, you feel good. And then, defensively, a name he brought up, which I thought was interesting, was Nick Madrigal. And, he's a little taller than Madrigal, but he's not the biggest guy. And so he studied kind of how Nick transitioned to third base and how he used his feet to kind of put himself in better position and to get more strength on his throws when you're not like the size of Nolan Arenado, right? It's a little harder. And, I think Bregman's another good example he could have brought up to a Gold Glove defender who's not the biggest guy. So Shaw studying those players and knowing what he needs to work on is huge. And a little bit of a setback, very minor this week. He said he's felt a little tweak in his oblique on Monday. Took a few days off. They're being uber careful and slow as they should be. He told us today he was cleared for basically everything at about 70%, but fielding, running, good to go tomorrow. They're going to get back to hitting and throwing. So it shouldn't be any concern at this point on Matt Shaw.
Now, you had video today and it went nuts. It went viral for Houston fans because it was Ryan Presley throwing to Kyle Tucker. Obviously, you mentioned it a little bit earlier with Jed talking about a win now year. They pushed all their chips in on Kyle Tucker. What did you see from Kyle Tucker at camp? Did he seem to fit in okay? Was he smiling, having a good time? And it didn't look like he was swinging. Looked like he was mainly tracking the ball today.
Yeah, I mean, you're in first live BPs for guys, and so it's kind of fun to see Astro versus Astro now as Cub and Cub. And we talk so much about Bregman and what that trio could have been like at Cubs camp. But the two biggest acquisitions this offseason we're facing off today. And yeah, Presley, was getting in work, and just to have a batter in the box is really important for pitchers at this stage. So Tucker kind of tracking, like you said, not taking big cuts. But we talked to him Friday. He got in only a couple days before that. And, he's still getting used to his bearings, right? He spent not only his entire career in Houston, but that facility is in Florida. He said the only time he had been to this facility was for Arizona fall camp. So very, I think mellow, even keel, focused dude. He is not someone that screams, look at me or superstar when it comes to his personality. Goes about his business in a quiet way. I talked to Craig Counsell a little bit about that today. And he said, Counsell did, he's a superstar, but he's kind of put your head down type of superstar. And, the numbers bear that out. And when he stayed healthy, and that was an issue last year, I believe it was the shin that got him down for 3 months, but he was on pace to have his best year overall. 3-time All-Star back-to-back. Obviously the playoff pedigree. I mean, that is an infusion of a star that the Cubs have not really had since the 2016 core. And so to make this a win now year, that I think is what makes this frustrating, the conversation about Bregman and missing out on other free agents and this budget hard cap, because you made this move for Tucker and you're only guaranteed 1 season of him. And if you're saying you're not going to make the necessary financial offers to guys like Alex Bregman, then what does that mean for the future of potentially re-signing Kyle Tucker? And he's going to command $300-400 million in a long-term deal. Does that already kind of rule you out, even if you have a really good season this year? I think the Cubs are banking on, we got him here. He's going to love Wrigley. He's going to love the fans. Hopefully we have a winning season, get back to the playoffs, and make his decision tougher. But these guys, as you know, Crawley, money speaks loudest. And if he's offered something crazy by a team that the Cubs are not going to go match, it won't necessarily matter. So for the interim, for this season, 2025, I'm excited to see Kyle Tucker. And he now being the guy, it's different because he was kind of in the background with Altuve and with Alvarez and Bregman and all the stars in Houston. So what is that spotlight in Chicago? What is that going to be like for him?
My only advice for Cub fans: don't buy your Kyle Tucker jerseys until he signs an extension. That's the one thing.
Good piece of advice. I agree with that one.
Now, you remember the old Nomar Garciaparra jerseys, right? All over Wrigley Field. One of the stories that was interesting coming into camp, obviously you got Kyle Tucker. That means Seiya Suzuki is going to be the DH, and Joe Wolf kind of brought it up on the winter meetings, didn't sound like too thrilled about it, and so you had a chance to talk to Seiya and the interpreter, and we'll play what he says, but to me it's got to be really hard because, like I said, you're getting it through an interpreter. He can't communicate that in English, and that's got to be tough. But here's what you had. Here's what you had Seiya. You recorded Seiya saying.
Yeah, my job is to give it my all to whatever my job calls for. So if it is to DH, if it is to play the field, I'm giving my best, and that's my job. Yeah, I can't share too much of what the conversation was between Counsell and I, but I feel like last year we could have had better communication. So going into this year, I feel like we're improving upon that and then communicate better during the season. So it was my first experience coming here where the manager changed. So I'm trying to learn how he thinks, and obviously the goal is to win the championship. So, what his thoughts are about concerning baseball and other things. So just getting a deeper understanding through him. Yeah, so I learned the flow of, the DH, how to prepare during games. And I think I can use that experience better for this year and figure out what other ways I can find to improve myself. I think it's that decision, it's up to me. I need to get better defensively, and if it does, I get to play the field more. So yeah, it's ultimately down to me.
Now, I don't know right now, just basically everything that he is saying right there. I mean, it's all the right things, but no matter how much he improves defensively, he's not knocking Kyle Tucker out of right field.
Exactly. I think once that trade became official, the speculation, rightly so, was, all right, what does that mean for Seiya Suzuki? And that was even when Bellinger was still a part of the Cubs. So you knew someone had to move. They decided to deal Cody, obviously, to New York. Is it possible Seiya gets moved at this point? I would be surprised. I don't think so. I think, they need his bat especially. And, he's going to spell guys mainly in the corners, whether it's Happ or whether it's Tucker. We heard from Craig Counsell this weekend saying that he'll get some work in spring in left field too. So maybe 1 or 2 times a week max that he'll play in the outfield. And I think you're going to see him DH hopefully 130 times a year, or, staying healthy that way too. But let's face it, he's had some high profile misses in the outfield and miscues. And when you add a Gold Glover, not just a great player in Tucker, but a Gold Glover, you can have Gold Glovers throughout the outfield. So your defense especially is a strength. And so Suzuki, whether he likes it or not, is going to have to be comfortable and getting used to that DH position. And I thought the other thing that was interesting that we talked to both him and Counsell about was there was some communication issues between them last year. And Seiya said that's something that they talked about and they're working on. And Counsell even admitted that he said he used the word lazy with, a foreign player and not being, having the conversation in English, just going up to a guy and just start talking. You need an interpreter because Seiya obviously is not fluent in English. And, I think some people were saying, why doesn't he, come on. It's just if you were plopped into Japan for a couple of years, don't expect to just learn Japanese that easily. So I don't think that's fair of him. But Seiya or Counsell admitted with Seiya that he needs to do better and he needs to work on that communication issue. So that for them to be upfront about that, I thought that was interesting. And one other note, last year Seiya had a different interpreter, Toy. They dismissed him kind of out of the blue in the middle of the year, right after the All-Star game. We never got an official explanation. I think Jesse Rogers followed up yesterday with Seiya to ask, was that part of this? And he said no. The current translator you heard there is Edwin Stanberry. He's actually the translator interpreter for Shota, and Seiya's interpreter, who is now Masamoto, was not in camp yet, had some visa issues according to Counsell. So just kind of keeping that all in context. But from what they said, the communication issues with Counsell were not related to anything with your interpreter.
Okay. All right. So that, it's, and Seiya in that clip mentioned, it's the first time he's been in the United States while there's been a manager change. So you do have to get used to a completely different style, obviously David Ross versus Craig Counsell. And so, he can hit. I mean, we've seen him hit and last year he was hitting well in April, injures his oblique and then struggles to come back. But once he starts going, he was really rolling. So, it feels like this year the Cubs really have a chance to win the NL Central. It's what they should do every time. But the question then, is what are they going to do in the postseason? Do they have enough? And, how many more moves are left for Jed Hoyer? Obviously, I don't think there's anything big happening, in the next, before the Tokyo series, but maybe as the season goes on and depending on how the Cubs look, hopefully Jed has a little bit more he can add.
And he's done that the past couple of years, right? Jimmer Candelario, a couple trade deadlines ago when it looked like the Cubs were going to be sellers. All of a sudden you win 9 of 11 or 9 of 10 right before the All-Star game before the trade deadline, right after the All-Star game, and you turn into a buyer. So Jed has shown the proclivity to be pretty active during the midseason, where you have a little bit extra cash on hand. And I think that's part of this, right? If he does have a set budget, and obviously it's not close to that luxury tax because they're 30 million short of that. So he has plenty of room, you would think, to make those in-season moves. I think more on the margins at this point, maybe another reliever. I think starting pitching, if they stay healthy, the top 3 look good, but you got some questions. Does Matthew Boyd build on his 8 starts coming off Tommy John last season? Colin Ray is a guy who can be an inning eater, but he with Javier Assad are going to be guys where they could be rotation pieces or long relievers. I think there's a lot of options like that. Ben Brown, we talked to in camp, feels fully healthy. Jordan Wicks is healthy too. So there's a lot of depth. I think it's up to people to agree or disagree whether that's good depth or not, and kind of feel how they want about the strength of this pitching staff. I tend to believe that it's much more improved than last year. And if they stay healthy, and if Tyone especially builds on what he did in September, it could look, like I said, pretty good at the top. And then you have a much deeper bullpen than you had last year, and obviously injuries crushed this team. So that's going to be something to look at. But yeah, like you said, this is a team that should win the NL Central. I don't think it's a given, even though the other teams didn't do much. It's still the Brewers, whether or not you like them. The Reds, I think, are sneaky. I don't think they're getting talked about a lot. They got a lot of kind of pieces on the margins that were better pickups than I think people made out to be, and also got healthier too. Matt McClain is back at the start of their top of their order. And then Pittsburgh, they still have probably the best pitcher in the National League in Paul Skeens. I was surprised they didn't try to do more to build on on his, 5 or 6 years under team control. But I think the bigger question is, if you make the playoffs, are you a team that can actually compete for more than that and with the big boys in the National League? And on paper, it doesn't look like that right now, but that's why they play the 162, and you got to see how this season unfolds.
Well, Josh, tell our listeners where they can find your work. And a lot of the videos that we saw today were from your Twitter account, which is X account, whatever you want to call it, but just full of good stuff. Where can they follow you on the socials, and where can they see your work on TV?
Appreciate it, Crawley. Yep. Josh_Frydman is the social handle on X. Yeah, I still say Twitter too. Come on. And then just Josh Frydman on Instagram and Facebook. So yeah, I've been posting a lot of just, like you said, clubhouse videos, pictures, videos from just both sides of Cubs and White Sox camp. And yeah, we got a bunch of good stories. GN Sports TV is the social handle for our show. It's 10:30 every night on WGN. So I'll be on tonight. I got to sit down with Craig Counsell. He had some really good stuff about Kyle Tucker, about what he kind of learned from his first year as a Cub last year to build on, the uniqueness of this camp with the Japan trip coming up. So good insight from Craig. And yeah, just I feel like we talked to every player so far in the clubhouse. It's just good to get to know guys and share that with the fans. And that's kind of what this time is about. And hopefully, Cubs fans enjoy that coverage. But always a pleasure to kind of talk Northside baseball with you, and hopefully we get to do it again soon.
Absolutely. And you have safe travels, Josh.
Thanks, buddy. You too. See ya.
It's all over.